trust me, trust me, trust me.
Really wanna be with you. Trust me, trust me, trust me, yeah. I'm here. そばにいるから Call me 僕がいるから Trust me もう何も恐れないで My dear 見えない糸で Trust me 繋がっているからただ感じていてこのぬくもり
Oh, this is weird. This is really weird. I've had this series in my collection for almost 5 years. It was one of the first manga I ever collected. Yet, for whatever reason, it took me, like I said, almost 5 years to actually read it. Now, before we get started, I haven't uploaded in a while because I'm recovering from a cold. You may still be able to hear it in my voice. I don't know because I can't hear it all. My ears are completely blocked. Alright, so Durarara, however the fuck you're supposed to pronounce this title, is a manga series that began serialization in 2009. It was written by Ryogo Narita, and the art was provided by Akiyo Satorigi. That's right, I never memorize the names when I do this shit. I have to reference the book every single time. Now, this is kind of a weird one. I don't think I've ever reviewed an adaptation of a light novel. It was a rather lengthy series of light novels that ran for 14 volumes, and then of course it got really popular, got a manga, and of course it got an anime. Now, because the light novel is so long, they haven't gotten very far with this manga, even in 10 years. I think they've only adapted the first 4 novels, and today I'm only going to be talking about the adaptations of the first 3 novels. Those being the first one, which is just called Durarara, the second one, which is called the Saika arc, and the third one, which is called the Yellow Scarves arc. What do any of these titles mean? I don't know, we should probably start the review and figure it out. So Durarara takes place, of course, in Japan, in a small district of Tokyo known as Ikebukuro. It starts with our, let's say, central protagonist, Mikado Ryugamine, arriving in Ikebukuro, as he has been invited by his friend Masaomi to come to Ikebukuro. They could go to the same high school, you know, leave that small-ass rural town they've been living in, and of course, you know, pick up some hot babes or whatever kids do these days. Now, the first chapter of the series kind of does my job for me, because it pretty much summarizes all the important things that you need to know going in. Masaomi takes Mikado around Ikebukuro, he shows him a bunch of cool stuff, introduces him to some people. You have Kadoda and his band of weebs. I guess they're not really weebs, because they live in Japan, but you know what I mean. He introduces him to the friendly Russian Simon, who runs a sushi shop. You gotta love Simon, man. But it's not all fun games. Masaomi also has some warnings from Mikado. He's like, listen, man, this town is kind of whack, okay? There's some cool people here, but there's also some real shitbags. You gotta stay away from Izaya, who is an info broker who may or may not be a psychopath. You gotta stay away from Shizuo, who is rumored to be the strongest man in all of Ikebukuro. And most importantly, you gotta watch out for the dollars. The dollars are this mysterious color gang without a color. No one knows who's part of the dollars, and they say that if you're a member of the dollars, that there are no rules. You can do whatever you want. Not a single person within the gang even knows who their leader is. It's all very spicy stuff. Mikado is pretty overwhelmed, obviously, but as he is about to turn in for the night, he witnesses probably the strangest and most fascinating thing about Ikebukuro. An urban legend known only as the Headless Rider. It's not very mysterious though, because we almost immediately find out that the Headless Rider is Celti, who is a Dullahan, which is a mythical Celtic fairy who, you know, used to bop around over in Ireland and visit people who are about to die, you know, all that cool shit. However, at one point, she lost her head, which caused her to lose all of her memories. However, 20 years before the series begins, she senses that her head is somehow in Ikebukuro, so she hitches a ride there, turns her horse into a motorcycle, and now she rides around town looking for her head. Is that fucking weird? Yeah. So this first arc of Durarara mostly follows Mikado and Celti as she tries to find her head, and Mikado how he gets caught up in it all. And I have to say, it's fucking terrible. I was baffled. I was baffled when I read the first volume of Durarara. Because you see, I actually have history with this series. This manga wasn't my first introduction to Durarara. I of course started with the anime several years ago, almost 5 years ago now. And when I first watched that anime, I thought it was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. I ate it all up. Hype was really high with Durarara back then because the second season was airing shortly. I think it's the only time that when I finished the series, I rewatched it immediately. I can't think of another time where I ever did that. I was truly obsessed with this anime. And after finishing the first volume, I think back to that time, I'm like, okay, I know my tastes have changed a bit. I know I used to like fairy tale, but surely it wasn't that bad. There is no way the anime was that bad. So, my curiosity got the better of me. The whole thing was over on Netflix, so I logged on and I checked out the first episode. And it was weird, because I greatly enjoyed it. And that's when I realized, oh, this is going to be complicated. These are both adaptations of the same thing, yet one is so good and the other is so shit. What is going on here? What is going on? That is the question. Now, as I mentioned, Durarara, there's a lot to it. I brought up all these different characters, a lot of different crazy plot lines. A lot of things I didn't even mention. I like all of these things on paper. I like all of these things in the anime. The manga just fails to cohesively tell this story. It lacks any sense of focus. Just in the first chapter, the amount of times it jumps around to different characters that we don't even know, you're just assuming it's like, oh, it's this character now, what's up, is kind of baffling. I don't know how the light novel is compared to it. I haven't read it, but it almost feels like they just adapted it directly when it really needed to be reworked for a different medium. It just feels so disjointed and messy. Nothing meshes together. In order to explain what I mean, we're going to need to bring up the anime as a comparison. And we're going to be looking at the introduction of two characters, Celti and Izaya. Because they're so similar, yet so different, to the point where, like I said before, one is awful and one is great. Celti is introduced in the manga by beating up a bunch of kidnappers. That's pretty much it. These guys, they kidnap this girl, Celti goes after them, she beats them up, you find out she doesn't have a head, that's it, end scene, cut somewhere else. Izaya, the information broker, is introduced. Now, like I mentioned, he's kinda crazy. One of his hobbies is to find suicidal girls, meet up with them, and then basically humiliate them into no longer wanting to kill themselves. It's all very wacky, but he manages to make it work. In the manga, he does exactly this. He meets up with two girls at a cafe somewhere. You know, what he does is he tricks them. He says like, hey, I want to kill myself too. Let's form a suicide pact. Let's kill ourselves together. But in reality, he's like, wow, you guys are fucking idiots. Why would you want to kill yourself? Ah ha ha. I'm so smart and cool. And with these two girls he's with, it's like, wow, you suck, win. And then they run away, and then he's like, aha, yes. All according to Kaikaku. End scene, cut somewhere else. However, in the anime, oh boy, you see, what they decide to do is so much better. The reason I bring up these two different character introductions in the manga is because in the anime, they are quite intertwined. Izaya is a bit more extra in the anime. Instead of two targets, he only goes after the one girl who he makes plans to meet up with. However, while looking for Izaya, she is then kidnapped by another group of people who chloroform her and take her away into a parking garage. This is when they are attacked by Celti, who beats the shit out of them and saves the girl in a very well animated scene. Celti then takes the girl to meet Izaya up on a rooftop. This is when Izaya reveals that he actually set up the kidnapping. He paid those people to kidnap her, and then he paid Celti to rescue her and bring her to him. Then he humiliates her, but because they're on a rooftop, he's like, hey, listen, if you still want to kill yourself, there's the roof. People have done it before. Then he runs off. Then she actually does try to kill herself, but Celti saves her. Then Celti gets really pissed off at Izaya, realizing what this whole thing was about, and questions if something like this has happened before. This was awesome. They did such a good job connecting both of these introductions into a very cohesive and engaging narrative. Wow, that was just comparing one scene to the anime. Yeah, you see what I mean? You could take almost any scene in this manga and compare it to the anime, and the anime is infinitely better. Which is so weird, because they're both so similar. They both have such a similar plot and similar character arcs, but it's really just a case of a great premise, horrible execution. Because at its core, I really do enjoy this series. Some would say that Ikebukuro itself is the main character of Durarara. Everything that happens in this series seems to be connected. It's a very strong theme throughout the series. And how many people who seem innocent, maybe people who you may know well, really aren't who they seem to be. It throws a lot of twists your way, a lot of winding non-linear narratives, but again, the manga just does such a bad job at conceiving this. At least in the first arc. Each of these arcs has a major plot twist. And I'll never forget the first time I saw this twist in the anime. I thought it was brilliant. I loved it. I did rewatch the entire anime series before I made this review, and I still really enjoy it. Granted, the anime is not as good as I remembered it, but it was still a very enjoyable experience. But you know, when this massive twist happens in the manga, you just don't give a shit. I didn't care. The only reason I kept reading was because I knew all of these characters, I knew the story from an actual good product. This was not it. And I can't imagine what someone who starts Durarara, who begins with the manga, I can't imagine what they think of it. But of course, that was only the first arc, and we're here to talk about 3 of them. The Saika arc. The Saika arc shifts focus over to Anri Sonohara, a classmate of Mikado and Masaumi's, who they're both kinda lusting over. And it deals with a mysterious case of serial slashings going on in Ikebukuro, where people are constantly being attacked by an unknown swordsman, yet never sustaining any serious injuries. It's all very wacky stuff, and even more wacky is that it's actually kind of good. You know, I was expecting to just hate all of this. Like, after the first arc, I'm like, what the fuck was that garbage? Horribly disappointed. I can't see it getting any better. And it does. Honestly, it gets significantly better. I don't know, again, if it's just following directly from the books and the book translates better into manga form, or I don't know if they were like, wait a minute, this is shit, we should make it better. But the Saika arc is honestly pretty enjoyable. Right away we get a backstory of Shizuo, who is one of my favorite characters, but the main thing that sets this apart from the first arc is it has focus. It has a straight, cohesive narrative. It still has all these moving parts, all these different characters, but it just all comes together nicely. That's what the first arc was missing. You know, it's not amazing. At 3 volumes, there's not really much to it, but I found myself enjoying it until I watched this arc in the anime. Yeah, even though the manga got better, its biggest flaw in my eyes is that the anime is still so much more enjoyable. And it's weird, because I know I wouldn't be reviewing this the same way if I hadn't seen the anime, but I really can't just stress it enough. Every time I read a scene in this manga, I'm like, hey, that wasn't bad, but the anime did it so much better. Next up is the Yellow Scarves arc. Uh-oh, there's another color gang in town. One that Masaomi used to be associated with, and they want him back. Uh-oh. Not much to say on this one. It was good. It's probably the best arc of the manga so far. And again, the anime trumps it in every way. I do have a few criticisms, though, that come up. For one, while the arcs themselves are a lot more focused and cohesive, the arcs themselves don't really mesh well together. You know, one will start, they'll introduce all this new shit that you never heard of before, you're thrown into a completely different story from the last. Yeah, obviously there's continuity, stuff that happened before still matters, but it's just like, why wasn't any of this stuff introduced or foreshadowed before? It feels really weird. If only there were another version of this story that did that built up these plot points from the very beginning, so when they happened here in this very short arc, you know, when they hit their massive climax, it would just have so much more emotional weight. Oh, right, the anime did that. Hey! Oh man, this review is probably already super long and I haven't even touched on the characters for the most part. So as it should be very clear by now, Durarara has a quite extensive cast of characters. There are very important characters who have major roles that I haven't even mentioned that I'm not going to have time to mention. But the biggest problem that this manga has, that applies to pretty much every character, is that of course it botches their introductions, which makes it very hard for you to care about any of them when they get development later on. Mikado is very bland in this. There's not really much to like about him. Once we learn some crazy new things about him, it's like, oh wow, cool, but I still don't really care. Once the arcs went on and they got better, I found myself really enjoying the characters again. I'm like, oh, alright, yeah, this character's awesome. I really like their backstory. One I mentioned was Shizuo. He's super cool. The reason he's so strong, the reason he can pick up fucking vending machines and hurl them across town is because he has this weird thing that I don't know if it actually exists in real life. Probably not. But you know how like when your adrenaline's going off, you're in a life or death situation and your fight or flight thing kicks in, and people have been reported being able to like lift cars and all that crazy shit. He basically has that going on all the time. His body doesn't do the thing where it reserves your strength so you don't damage yourself. And because he's broken so many bones all throughout his childhood, now he's just a fucking tank. I really, really love him. And I love his rivalry with Izaya. Izaya is such another amazing, complex, and devious character. Celti is another really cool character. I love her past. It takes this, mythical Irish folklore that you would never associate with anything related to Japan or manga. And it gives a very unique and fresh take on this creature. Her whole story to me is just fascinating. Again, I'm in a position where I don't know really how to feel. Because I'm reading this and I know the only reason I really feel attached to these characters is because I grew attached to them with the anime. If you're reading this with no prior knowledge to the series, I really can't see you caring about these characters much. And yeah, this really applies for all the other characters too. There's just so many, it would take me way too long to talk about them all individually. But the manga really leaves a lot to be desired. Christ, we've been going on for a while. As for the art, not really much to say about it. It's okay. I think the character designs are good. The artist knows what she's doing. She can draw. She makes good, decent drawings. Sometimes they don't look that great, sometimes they look a bit off, sometimes the composition of the page is kind of gross, but overall, it's decent, it works. But again, the anime trumps it in almost every way, especially because not only is the art style better, but the first season in particular has some pretty fantastic animation. And there you have it. Those were my thoughts on the Durarara manga, at least for the first 3 arcs. There are more. I believe the 4th arc is all out in English, but personally I can't be fucked. This was such a wild ride, man. Like, I was not expecting this review to go so long. I wasn't expecting my thoughts on it to be so complicated. But it just baffled me, especially the first arc, which was so bad. But I mean, I'm kind of grateful for it because it helped me rediscover the anime. It's a very great show. It's not the best thing I've ever seen. It does have a few problems, but overall it's just a great time, and I couldn't recommend it enough. Give it an 8 out of 10. Wait, sorry, I got a bit sidetracked there. We're reviewing this piece of shit. Now, like I said, it's not all bad. The Saika and Yellow Scarves arc are pretty decent. However, you're just better off not reading them and watching the anime. I don't know, 5 out of 10. If I were to do the arcs individually, I'd say the first one is shit, it's a 3. Psych arc's enjoyable, give it a 6. Yellow Scarves a bit better, a 7. But it's just not worth. It's really just not worth checking out. However, if you are so inclined, I suppose you can pick up the volumes, although they're all, of course, released by Yen Press, so they're pretty expensive anyway. Just watch the anime, it's on like Netflix and Crunchyroll. Yeah, that's my recommendation, fuck this manga. But what did you guys think? Have you read it? Have you seen the anime? What are your thoughts on Durarara? I'm really interested to know because I really don't have any clue what the consensus of this series is. If you do like Durarara and you're looking for something else to read, I don't know, JoJo? I like it. It's such a weird series. I haven't read much else that I can compare it to, but JoJo's great. Go check that out. In terms of anime though, you also have Baccano, which I don't think I've ever talked about on this channel. I don't even know if I've ever name dropped it, but Baccano's fucking awesome. It's based on a light novel, which is actually written by the same person as Durarara. So if you like this, you're probably going to love Baccano. Definitely check that out. And with that, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you all in my next full series review, which will hopefully be soon, because it's quite short, and I'm quite eager to check this one out.